Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm Kevin Schroeder, and I'm here with my co-host, Ed Mamet.
Hello, WABC listeners. Nice to be with you again today.
So today's guest on Cop Talk is Stan Fitzgerald. Stan is a retired detective from the Essex County, New Jersey Sheriff's Department. He's also worked in narcotics units, task force, including the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration. He's been involved in many hundreds of arrests. He's also survived threats from a mob boss, as well as a drug dealer. I believe he is currently the president of Veterans for America First. He's also a producer of two upcoming documentaries, Border Invasion and American Crisis, which comes out this week, and also Veterans for Trump, The Movement. I believe that's out this summer. Stan, welcome.
Hey, guys. Thank you for having me on.
So, Stan, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, your background, where you grew up, time on the job, where you worked, etc.?
Sure. Well, I'm a Jersey guy. I grew up in Essex County, spent a lot of time at the Jersey Shore. So, I'm always going to argue with you about who has better food, New York or New Jersey.
I don't think that's an
where
argument.
I grew up.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll finish that off camera.
Okay, sounds good.
So in 1986, I was about 19 years old, and I wanted to get involved in law enforcement. And I took the civil service test for the Essex County Sheriff's Department in Newark and got hired. I spent a few years in the court security division. And then after some training and interviews, I ended up as a detective in the Bureau of Narcotics. And I worked there about 5 or 6 years. And I was on various task force, as you pointed out. I worked with the DEA task force for a while, prosecutors major case squad. And then there was a task force called WestNet, which was like a suburban task force where we went after the drug dealers in the local bars and stuff like that were giving, pushing to the kids. And after narcotics, I worked in civil process for a while, serving subpoenas. And what happened was an injury I sustained in narcotics. I was run down by a drug dealer, and I had back problems, and eventually it got to the point where I couldn't function properly, and I also had PTS. So after 13 years, I did go out on a partial disability.
Tell us about Veterans for Trump / Veterans for America. I think people are confused by the title. Can you explain more about it? Can you clarify?
Sure. We are Veterans for America First, but because the president is running, we're going back to our original 2015 grassroots name. In 2015, Veterans for Trump formed under the leadership of General Flynn and Admiral Kubik, and they sort of organized boots on the ground for the Trump campaign. And at that point, when the president was just starting out, he actually utilized our organization for security at speaking events and such. And then General Flynn went in to serve in the administration. The world knows what happened to him. And Admiral Kubik went to build the wall. And then in about leading up to 2020, we had organized formally as Veterans for America First. And we all know that, and then we sort of just worked on missions for helping veterans and programs to help veterans, And then we ended up being invited to Mar-a-Lago in November 2022 when the president was announcing his bid. And at that point, we were part of the grassroots campaign. And we decided to go back to using Veterans for Trump. That's why it's a little confusing.
Can you talk about law enforcement and the other first responders in the group? And how about the general public? How do they play a role in this?
Well, my answer to that is when the president came down the escalator in 2015, he declared war on the radical left and the establishment. And our organization believes that every single one of you, whether you're a veteran, a cop, or just a lawyer or a member of the public, that we're all veterans in that fight for the ballot box since the president announced that battle. Because make no mistake about it, I mean, this is clearly a war we're fighting here for our country. So we're all equal, to answer your question. Everyone plays a role.
During the Rodney King riots, you there was a shockwave across the country, and now we're having a shockwave with illegal immigration. Can you talk about that, the illegal immigration?
Sure. Let me just tell you a little bit about that Rodney King time frame in my career. The country was very tense. Police were being attacked all over the country, and we were doing a simple street-level buy and bust in Orange, New Jersey, I believe it was, in some project buildings. And we made an arrest. There was a little bit of a fight. The defendant, was a martial arts expert. So I guess it was a big fight. It took a whole lot of us to secure this defendant that we arrested. And people looked at it from their windows and thought they saw something they didn't see. And then we were surrounded by a crowd of like 50 to 70 people who were picking up bottles and pipes and everything else. And then he started chanting Rodney King. And it was very close. And there was just 3 or 4 of us against 50 or 70. We had to call an officer needs assistance at that point. But it came very close to escalating to what was going on across the country, where police were being attacked for doing their job. Translating that now to illegal immigration, what I see going on is a plan by left for open borders to destroy the country from within. I mean, it's treasonous. And by flooding the country with these illegals, a lot of them criminals, suspected terrorists, you're gonna take away our voice. You're going to negate all the legal votes with all these votes that shouldn't count. Number one, and number two, to my understanding, one of the plans of Marxism is to destroy the country from within, and that's exactly what's going to happen with the crime. You're increasing the crime, you're decreasing the amount of police, and you're setting the country up under the Marxist playbook to turn. That's what I see.
Well, you've been on the front line of law enforcement and politics. What role do you see for the police dealing with this illegal immigration problem? Many of these so-called sanctuary cities, including New York, have restricted the police from dealing with ICE or getting involved in immigration matters, which I think is a big mistake, because many of these illegals, first contact could be with the police, and the police are in a perfect position to notify immigration. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I wish that we had an immigration system that had laws that were enforced. The current president, he projects a nationwide image that, we can't do anything about this, but he has the powers to do something about it. He's the one who opened the borders. He could restore Trump's programs, and then we would have a similar sort of a law and order working system that we could have these illegals processed like they were under the Trump administration. I think that's the answer. Police are kind of tied. I don't see a workaround at the local police level. I think that has to come from the mayor or whoever the officers report to in the chain of command. There has to be a directive put out that gives a solution. But unfortunately, I think this rests with the federal government that needs to change.
Jeff?
We agree with you with that, for sure. Stan, why don't you tell us about the Border Invasion and American Crisis, one of your documentaries that I believe, is that coming out this week?
Yes, sir. March 8th, it'll be streaming on Salem Now and on the John Fredericks radio show platform if you want to watch it. It's actually our second film. We put out a film a few months ago called The Fall of Deceit. And that starred General Flynn and Laura Loomer, and I was just a producer on that. And we were pushing back on the overreach of the federal government and the abuse of the system in that film. Now, our second film is about the open borders. It's, as you said, Border Invasion, American Crisis. And we took the approach of showing people what's really going on at the border. We had a retired ICE agent, Victor Avila, who's also running for Congress in Texas, give us a boots-on-the-ground look to see what's really happening there. It's very raw. It's very gritty. People could get a real feel of what it's like there. And even though the media portrays these big crowds coming in, it's 100 times worse than even what you see on the news now. It's just lawlessness and totally out of control. And we want to open eyes and promote how to secure that border, and that's under a forthcoming Trump administration.
Right. Getting back to the immigration crisis, the people in this country are getting fed up, and this was predictable. I mean, anyone with a brain would know immediately that there would be problems like we're having now. What do you know about any plans that President Trump might have for dealing with it, which where the police would be involved? I know I asked you before about the police, but I always believe that the police can have a major role in this crisis. So as far as Trump goes, do you know of anything that he plans to do regarding regarding the crisis and the police?
Yes, he's publicly stated it at rallies. I'm not sure if they published it or not, but it's pretty clear what his plan is. And first and foremost, to finish the wall. And our national spokesman, Admiral Charles Kubik, is ready to do that. I mean, he was working under the president, finishing the wall, and it came very close to being finished. To restore the Remain in Mexico policy, that's number two. And Tom Homan can take care of that underneath the president. He's also on our advisory board. And then also end catch and release and reinstate the travel bans. Those four key things are what help reverse the sinking ship of open borders. So that's a no-brainer. The president has stated that publicly. I believe those are his plans.
I believe that Holman said that, they would be involved in a mass deportation. Did you hear that?
He did say that, and he is the man that could organize it and carry it out. He's the right guy for that job.
Yeah, but how would he carry it out? Again, the police would have to be involved.
Well, that is the point. At that point, as you're mentioning, the average citizen might not know the difference with the federal law and the state laws, and how sometimes we can't enforce certain policies. That's a very in-depth conversation for another time that you could explain to people. But I believe Tom Homan will work with local law enforcement and the president, and will try to come up with solutions. I mean, that's something that we have to work with state legislators on, not just Congress, because we're talking about state policies and state laws. So Tom, I think, could bridge that gap, and the president, as state offices, state elected officials across the country who support him. And I think there could be a process that we could all work together and do something like a mass deportation. I believe it's possible. I don't think it's impossible. There's just a lot of work that needs to be done very quickly.
Well, the feds can deputize people. It's been done before. If you have a jurisdiction that's willing to accept that, the feds can deputize the local police officers to act as immigration officers. So that could be a step in the right direction. I'm sure it would not be uniform around the country, because you do have cities and counties and the like that would resist. But in those areas where they would accept that, that's a possibility. It's a way to start. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's actually a very good suggestion. And I know the president likes outside-the-box ideas. And as he demonstrated in his 4 years in office, he's not afraid to act on them. So that might be something that you see them do.
Well, would you tell him I said that, please?
Sure.
Stan, do you actually meet with the president?
I've met with the president 12 times. I've had an extensive conversation with him once. The last time I saw him, he said, when I was introduced, the president said, "I know who they are. They're doing great work." So he's following what we're doing.
Great.
My organization did have a role in the South Carolina campaign, and we ended Nikki Haley's career where it began. She should have dropped out, but she's hanging in there, but we'll get rid of her. So, yeah, I don't have a direct line of communication with the president, but I have talking to him, and he knows who I am.
Right.
And the campaign is monitoring our organization, and we're acting accordingly for promoting 45.
So you met him then, and you've also, he's well aware of what you guys are doing for him, which is great.
Oh yeah, they're watching what we're doing, and they're happy with it.
That's great. That's great. Stan, you have another documentary, VFAF, Veterans for Trump, the movement, coming out this summer. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct. So VFAF stands for Veterans for America First, but we want to have the call tag Veterans for Trump so people can find it. And what we're going to do there is we're going to show a brief history of the organization going back to 2015. But by brief, I mean just 10, 15 minutes. We want to get into what we're fighting for in this country, and more importantly, how to motivate cops and veterans across the country to be the leaders that they are naturally and get the boots on the ground to organize the vote for Trump. So Veterans for Trump, that film coming out this summer, that's going to be more focused on utilizing our skills as law enforcement or veterans and getting the vote out for the president to make sure we take this country back.
Gotcha. Now, just to go back, you said there was a mob hit at one point on you. Tell us about that.
So I'm getting old, but you also look old enough to remember the crime families in Newark. Sorry, I couldn't resist. So we executed a search warrant on. There was a mobster named Phil Denoyes. Phil Denoya, I forget what crime family that was. It's been a while, but we were going after his son, who was a heroin dealer, and he was in the father's house, and he was armed. So we executed a warrant to arrest him, seize the weapon and the heroin. But the next day, I got a call from Phil Denoya, and I'll leave out the cursing, but basically there was a lot of F-bombs, and I should know who he is, and how dare I enter his house, and I was going to be a target, and basically like he threatened. And that wasn't the first time that happened. We also had a threat from a major heroin dealer.
Oh, can you tell us about that?
Sure. John Scissorak was a Newark police detective. When we worked with Newark on jobs, he was usually my partner, and we also went together to a school in New York City where you guys are from called HIDTA, H-I-D-T-A, and that was high-intensity drug trafficking area. So we were trained by your people in New York, John and myself. So we became very close, and he arrested a guy named Danny Oliver, who was one of the biggest heroin dealers in Newark in the 1990s. And Danny put a hit out on John Scissorak from the prison, and it was carried out. I'm old enough to have predated metal detectors in the courthouse. And an associate of this heroin dealer walked into the courthouse where they are having a hearing on this arrest, on this case, and shot John Scissorak point blank in the back of the head. And then shot other officers I worked with and ran out of the building, and we had a major manhunt, ended up finding him. But that's how it started. And then myself and my team went out and we arrested people associated with this organization. And that's when I was threatened. There was a hit put out on myself and a couple of the other officers I worked with in the Detective Bureau. So I've survived a hit from the mob and a hit from a major heroin dealer who actually did execute someone. So I'm blessed to be here today.
Yeah, thank God. Does anyone from your organization go down to Police Week in Washington, D.C. every May?
Yes, but not officially. Guys go. And now that your producer, Joe Diamond, is with us, we hope that he'll take on the official position of doing that, representing us.
That's right. Our producer, Joe Diamond, is with you now, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's great.
And
That's great.
we have a great New York team forming, and Joe's going to be a big part of that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Captain?
You didn't tell us what happened to those threatening phone calls. What was the end result? Was he arrested at least for making the threats?
Well, as far as the mob guy, this was the Wild West at the time, and there's a lot of politics involved. And I reported it to Internal Affairs. I don't know what happened, but later I did read that whole organization was taken out by the feds in a joint operation with the state investigators. So a lot of those guys went to prison and never got out. As far as being arrested from the threat, I honestly don't remember. I don't think so. As far as the drug dealer, yeah, we went out and locked everybody up that we could associated with that guy.
Well, it's been a great interview, and you have my permission to present my idea as your own to the president.
Well, I'll tell you what. They're not free. They're fundraisers, but I'll get you guys invited to Mar-a-Lago, and maybe you could tell them yourself.
Oh, that's great.
That sounds good. I'm sure the captain will take you up on that, and maybe myself as well. Are you based out of Georgia now? Is your organization based out of Georgia, or are you still out of New Jersey?
Well, our organization legally is now based in Georgia, but we are developing in each state. So we hope to in the next 2 years have 50 operating state chapters to better organize the boots on the ground for this movement of saving America. But our main headquarters, for lack of a better term, is in Georgia.
Okay, Cap. Good.
Well, I think we've had a good session here.
Very good interview. Stan, I'd like to thank you, Stan Fitzgerald. Excuse me, everyone. Stan Fitzgerald, guest on our show today with the Veterans for Trump. And we thank you for all the hard work you're doing, and keep it up, Stan. We appreciate you. We appreciate your team. And, God bless you, and stay safe, okay? Everyone, is there any way anyone could contact you in regards to want to get involved with Veterans for Trump?
Yes. Please visit veteransfortrump.us. That's veteransfortrump.us. And you could sign up to volunteer there. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Stan Fitzgerald, for being our guest today. Everyone, if you like what you hear, please subscribe to Cop Talk, and you can follow us on Twitter at Cop Talk WABC. That's at Cop Talk WABC. Until next time, be safe out there. God bless the USA. God bless America. And God bless law enforcement throughout the country. Thank you.